All right, guys. Finally starting to make some progress on the GT500. You can see the motor is finally on the stand. I fought with this a little bit, figured out a better way to do it. I got everything aligned good. If any of you guys were following me on Instagram, you will know this thing was leaning quite a bit last week. I took a couple things off it. I don't think really helped weight-wise, but I think really spreading the weight across that flange a little bit did help out significantly. So you can see we got the AC compressor off. We got the alternator off. We got the headers off. Let me tell you, I don't know how the fuck you guys do these with the headers in the car. I had a hell of a time getting these two out, and I want to say somebody else did at one point too, because these were different size heads. Actually, I think these two were different size heads. I had a hell of a time getting these two out. I ripped up the bolts quite a bit, so we're going to be doing some different bolts next time through. We're going to find somebody to do ceramic coating on the header, so I got to find somebody to do that. We're going to send the headers out soon. The RXT, got the RXT out. I was a little concerned with the wear on that. Contacted McLeod, and they said it was absolutely perfect, textbook wear. Other than that, we're getting ready to start disassembling. Today, or yesterday actually, I went and begrudgingly spent some money at Harbor Freight. If you guys were familiar with my old Craftsman box I had, it was a 26-inch box, I think it was, and it was 15 plus years old. When I first started getting tools, I didn't have a lot to fill it up, and 15 plus years later, I had a lot to fill it up. I was overfilling it, and the drawers were collapsing. So I went with a US General 44-inch unit. We're going to try doing just the bottom portion for now. I do have it fairly filled. A little bit more space to go, but I want to be able to keep that top space for a workspace. I'm tired of working on my knees on this bench or working on the steps. So I'm hoping that this is going to create a workspace for the garage and be functional for us. So I'm happy with this so far. I ended up getting it for 400 bucks out the door. While we were there, we got a little bit of storage. So now I have some kind of with storage, some kind of sanity. I won't have to be looking for my sockets. If you guys seen before, all my sockets were just sprawled across one tray, and it was a pain in the ass. So for both standard and metric, I have all my sockets arranged now. And another issue was my wrenches. I may get some trays or something for the wrenches to keep them nice, but otherwise I can spread across now, and they're deep enough to hold all my wrenches. So I think we're good for that for now. One of the other things I got from Harbor Freight yesterday is something that was much needed. You're gonna see a Pulley Puller Kit. We're going to use that for the harmonic damper. This ended up coming down to like 14 bucks maybe. I'm hoping this is going to do the trick to get that ATI off. So that's going to be the next thing, getting that off. Once we get the ATI damper off, we're going to start taking off some of these accessories and get to all the bolts for the front timing cover. Get the front timing cover off. We're going to get the heads off and see what's really happening. So one thing I did notice in cylinder 6, I think it was, I looked down into the, actually it was a 5 or 6. Yeah, it's 6. So you're not going to be able to see in there, but I did notice that I did break a valve guide, I think it was. So I did see it sheared all the way across. Not sure how long that's been like that. Maybe that's been like that for a while. Maybe it was from this. I don't know. But once I can get that front timing cover off, we can get the heads off, and we can start cracking on this. So we'll be back in a little bit, see if we can get the pulley off. All right, today we're going to take off the damper and see if we can get the heads off. So you're going to see with the ATIs, they come with these 12-point bolts. These are a 3/8 head bolt, 12 point. Hit them with an impact because you're not going to be able to get it off with a regular ratchet because you need something to hold the other side. So without your flywheel on and all that shit, you're not going to be able to do it. Hit it with the impact and it's going to come right off. So we'll get these off and then you're going to see that this is a two-piece design, and then we'll be able to pull out the pulley. All right, and then after you take off the outer ring for the drive belts, you're going to get to the main damper to pull that off and get this off the crank. So now we're going to use our pulley puller tool and see if we have the right size bolts to get in there to pull this off. All right, I got the damper off. I had to charge the compressor up pretty damn far to get a lot of pressure in that. I had to drive for a while and it eventually came out. So assuming it's not supposed to look like this, the top of the crank is not centered in this hole, but at least now we got access to the timing cover. We can go ahead and start cracking on getting some of the accessories off in the timing cover and check this thing out. All right, next thing, I think I'm gonna have to take off some of these accessories. Looks like the power steering pump has some bolts in here that bolts into the timing cover. It's probably gonna need to come out. My guess is the tensioner might need to come out. The water pump's probably gonna have to come out. Maybe the thermostat housing, probably all this shit's gonna have to come out. I'm not sure how deep it goes into the timing cover, but I'm probably gonna start loosening around the timing cover first to see if it pries a little bit, and if it doesn't, then I'll go back and try and hit some of that stuff. I really don't want to take it all off if I don't have to, but there are going to be some things. This line that goes back to the, I guess it's an oil cooler or a power steering cooler or something like that. That's definitely going to have to come off because that's going through the side. Other than that, I'm going to see how much I can get off of the cover bolts without having to remove this stuff. All right, so much for not having to take everything off. I got off the tensioner down here, got off the water pump, some of the miscellaneous idlers, and what else did I take off? I had to take off the oil cooler housing, and this thing here, this is where the water comes in and cools the oil. That had to come off to get to the two bolts back there, and you had two bolts back there on the oil filter housing as well to be able to get to this last bolt that's hiding down here on the timing cover. I think I can leave the thermostat housing on, but be wary of this stuff. You have to get all that shit off to be able to get the timing cover off. All right, so if you've never seen how your oil cooler works, essentially you have coolant that comes out of the thermostat housing, comes down through this tube, up through this housing and circulates around, cools off the oil, and you have a recirculation pipe, or actually not a recirculation pipe, that's all one pipe for that. There's a pipe that comes out at the bottom, I forget where that goes without looking at it, somewhere in the front of the motor to circulate the coolant, and then this comes off the back of the passenger head. Actually, yeah, passenger head comes back through the front of the motor and recirculates coolant around. So if you've never seen that before, that is the gist of it. And again, this is the actual intercooler, I'm going to say. The coolant goes up through here, oil goes up through there, and it cools it, and I guess recirculates it back down through that tube. All right, so once you get all the front cover bolts off, you're going to see the top of the front cover is going to be able to peel apart a little bit. And it looks like there might be a dowel right around there. And I think there's two studs up here on the front of the oil pan that need to come off to peel off this front cover. So I'll go ahead and get those off. And I think maybe that might be it for this thing to come off. All right, there were actually 4 bolts. There were 2 bolts in the middle here, and then a bolt out on each, or a stud out on each side to be able to get to the bottom of the timing cover. So now we see some of the carnage. If you look inside the timing cover, there was already some chunks of metal that came out here. I guess that's a sensor of some sort. Were some chunks of debris and shit in here. So that tells part of the story. Now we get to the crank snout. You're gonna see crank snout totally disconnected. So thank you, Michael Capizzi, for telling me what this was before I knew what it was. Now we definitely know what it is. So if you guys have never seen a broken crank snout, now you have. Otherwise, the chains look like they're in good condition. I might have broke. I don't see anything I broke with the with any of the tension arms or chain tensioners or anything like that. Again, you see some metal shavings up in here from things, from some of the carnage. So I'm gonna be replacing all this shit with billet tensioners and whole shit and shebang. Let's go ahead and keep taking this apart, see how much we can get apart tonight. Okay, so here is the official crank snout. Obviously you can see it's severed from the back, and it did bitch up that keyway obviously quite a bit, and cracked that entire ring around. So again, we're going to do all billet on this stuff. The gear looks a little warped. It might be hard to pick up on the pictures, but okay, so here it is. These teeth are banged up a little bit, and you can see it, they're pushed in, so we're gonna have to get a new gear. And you can see this came out of the front of the oil pan, so yeah, I don't know how much, I mean, obviously it broke quick, so I don't think any metal went up into anything, but yeah, guys, that's what a broken crank snout looks like. We'll keep on digging. I'm going to try and leave the cams in it, and I'm just going to pop the heads off just because I want to see you know, what everything looks like. Alright, I am getting ready to get the head bolts out and get the heads off, peel these all out, and we'll get the first head off. Alright, first head's coming off, and yeah, fuck, we got piston damage. Yes, we most certainly do got piston damage that I did not see. So, yeah, we're going to be a little fucked here. Curious to see what the valves are going to look like. Piston damage is not horrible. I mean, to be perfectly honest, I am kind of okay with replacing these pistons because I did want higher compression anyway, but I did not expect that. So, I am not the luckiest guy in the world, as it may seem. I thought I was gonna be, but the damage on the pistons really doesn't look bad. All right, I mean, I don't feel any marks on the pistons. So I think it was just a little marks on the valves. They might be bent, but we're gonna have to check once we get this all out. There'll be a little spot right there in the head. All right, let me get these cleaned up, and I'll get the other head off, and we'll assess this damage a little bit more. And actually, now that I do look at this a little bit closer, if you can see that, that looks like there is a decent bit of detonation in cylinder number 4. There's a lot of pocks in the top of that cylinder, and yeah, there is some scoring in that cylinder right over in there. So that one's definitely going to need to be honed. The other ones aren't really looking bad at all, to be honest. I can't see what that one's like. Cylinder 4 is pretty bad, though. There is a lot of marking. There's some etching up in there. And like I said, it does look like there was a good bit of detonation on cylinder number 4. Fuck. All right. So let's get the rest of it apart and see what it's like. All right, let's get the head too. Like I said, I do know that I did break a valve guide on this one, so let's see how bad this one is. All right, first we're gonna look down into the cylinders, and that was just from the head gasket. That's not bad. Yeah, we got some hitting on those too. So at very least, it's going to need a full piston job. Yeah. All right, so it only hit on the intake sides. Well, no, it did hit a little bit on the exhaust sides. This side definitely was not as bad. I don't see any kind of scoring in the cylinder walls. A little bit of hot spots up here, up at the ends. But that's pretty normal, as I understand. All right, so I don't see anything down. I don't see anything down into the bores. Nothing that's catching, so I think these should be all right. But at very least, it's gonna need a whole new piston job. Let's see what the head looks like on this one. And yeah, that one's gonna be bent for sure. I think that's the one that broke the valve guide. That one's probably bent. These might be all right. Again, I'm actually pretty surprised. It doesn't look like there's really any damage to these valves otherwise from them clashing. So I guess the difference in material between the valves and the pistons was enough to keep that minimal. Again, guys, I am no engine builder by any means, but to me that looks pretty minimal. I don't see any issues in the heads themselves. We'll get them cleaned up, but I don't see any issues in the heads themselves. So I think possibly I might get out of this without basically with just a short block rebuild and maybe a couple valves. So I don't think it is absolutely horrible, but you guys tell me. So guys, this is my wife saging the garage and saging my car and saging my motor and parts because I need some bit of luck for the rest of 2020 and 2021. That is the only way that this car is going to get done. And in some way, maybe be reliable and get rid of whatever hex is on this car, because this car is a fucking nightmare. So you guys may laugh, but I am at that point of desperation with this build that yes, I'm having my wife sage the bad omens and bad spirits away from this car and motor. Alright guys, we're going to go ahead and stop the video here. You're going to see that I dropped the heads back on. Basically, I just placed them on the dowels and started a couple of the bolts on each side just to kind of hold them in place. I have to do something with all this stuff. So I'm going to get some totes and organize this stuff a little bit better and get some kind of normality back to my life and figure out what I'm going to do here. So to keep this video brief, we're going to stop it here. You guys see a good portion of the damage. There were a couple metal chunks of the crank that I pulled out of the oil pan, so the next video is probably going to be pulling the oil pan out. Maybe doing some disassembly on the heads. I have somebody reached out to me. It's going to sell me some OEM valves that he pulled out of a low mileage GT500 real cheap. So I'll probably be getting those, so I have some backup valves. And then we're just going to kind of take this in increments. We'll take off the oil pan, maybe we'll get the pistons out and check the rods just to make sure everything's good. But we're going to stop it here. Guys, I want to thank you for viewing. Sorry ahead of time that this is going to take a while, but for a normal working guy like me, this is a very, very major expense. So this is going to take some time. I'm going to try and collect parts on the side as much as I can. Please make sure to like and subscribe. Please watch the ads if you can. Again, I hate to ask you to do that, but that is going to help get this running a little bit quicker, and it's going to help me give you a little bit more regular content on the rebuild. Let me know if you guys have any questions, and we'll catch you on the next one.